In recent days, the film world and millions of hearts around the globe have been struck by a wave of sorrow. Hollywood has lost one of its brightest lights. Diane Keaton, the woman who turned vulnerability into art and transformed loneliness into something profoundly beautiful. Her passing at the age of 79 didn't just mark the end of an era. It left a quiet ache in the soul of cinema itself, as if the world collectively paused to grieve in silence. As her family prepares to say their final goodbyes in a private ceremony in California. No red carpets, no flashing cameras, just love and quiet. Tributes are pouring in from every corner of the world. Among the many voices honoring her, one stands out above the rest. Goldie Hawn, Diane's dear friend, co-star, and confidant. The two shared laughter in their youth, and now they share the weight of this heartbreaking goodbye. Goldie's emotional farewell moved millions to tears, uniting strangers in shared grief. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and leave your own farewell message in the comments. It's a simple way to honor a woman who gave everything, her art, her soul, and her truth to the world. To understand Diane's journey, we must return to where it all began. Not in the glow of spotlights, but in silence. Born on January 5, 1946 in Los Angeles, Diane grew up under the golden skies of Hollywood, a place where perfection was celebrated and real emotions were often hidden away. Her father, Jack Hall, was a disciplined man who believed love was expressed through structure and rules. Her mother, Diane Keaton Hall, once crowned Mrs. Los Angeles 1955, carried theatrical dreams that eventually faded into the quiet of domestic life. Their home looked picture perfect, but conversations about feelings were rare. "We didn't talk about feelings," Diane would later say. "We lived inside them." As a young girl, Diane stood in a doorway, only 9 years old. Watching her mother's vibrant dreams dissolve into routine, applause replaced by clattering dishes. That moment shaped her. She promised herself she wouldn't disappear like that. While other girls dreamed of white fences, she dreamed of escape, of a stage of light, of being seen. Her salvation came under the trembling spotlight of a high school play where she portrayed Blanche Dubois. She was terrified, but for the first time, her trembling came from truth, not fear. "That was the first time I felt seen," she said years later. Acting wasn't just performance, it was survival. In 1966, at just 20 years old, Diane boarded a Greyhound bus to New York City with one suitcase, 2 scripts, and a heart full of determination. She dropped Hall and reclaimed her mother's maiden name, Keaton, as both tribute and quiet rebellion. "Every time they say Miss Keaton, they're saying my mother's name," she once whispered. New York was unforgiving. Her tiny Upper West Side apartment had peeling wallpaper, wheezing radiator, and windows that let in the freezing winter air. Days were spent auditioning, often being told she was too tall, too strange, not the type. Afternoons meant waitressing. Nights were spent singing in smoky basement for spare change. She wrote by candlelight when the power was cut and walked the streets to keep warm. "I stayed because I was afraid." She later wrote, "Fear became my engine," and that fear carried her through 2 years of hunger, rejection, and loneliness. Then in 1968, everything changed. The Broadway revival of Hair was looking for someone raw and real. Diane walked in barefoot, trembling but alive. The director simply said, "Don't change a thing." Under the bright stage lights, the silence she had carried all her life finally cracked open. "I built myself out of fear," she confessed later. And it was true. Fear became her backbone. Hunger her fuel. Rejection her teacher. The first flash of fame came with The Godfather, 1972. As Kay Adams standing beside Al Pacino's Michael Corleone, she brought a quiet strength and emotional depth that captivated audiences. 5 years later, in 1977, came Annie Hall, and with it, immortality. Her nervous laugh, her turtlenecks, her unpolished charm. It wasn't just a character. It was Diane herself. That night holding the Oscar, she thought she'd finally arrived. But in the quiet of her kitchen afterwards, she whispered, "Is this what it feels like to be seen?" Fame looked golden from the outside. Up close, it was sharp-edged. She worked tirelessly, rewriting scripts late into the night, chasing a perfection that always seemed just out of reach. "I thought success would make me whole," she later admitted. "Maybe it just gave me permission to be broken in public." In 1981, her performance in Reds demanded everything she had, and she gave it. Critics called her fearless. She felt hollow. By the mid-1980s, after The Little Drummer Girl, 1984, faltered, Diane quietly stepped back from the spotlight, not out of defeat, but to protect her truth. In 1996, at the age of 50, Diane adopted her daughter, Dexter. 5 years later, she welcomed her son, Duke. She once said, "They saved me." Her home filled with laughter, burnt toast, scribbled mirror notes, and movie nights wrapped in blankets. She taught them that family isn't about shared DNA. It's about choosing each other every day. On the set of The First Wives Club in 1996, Diane met Goldie Hawn. They seemed like opposites, Diane meticulous and reserved, Goldie radiant and spontaneous. But one cold night on set, Goldie wrapped her coat around Diane's shoulders and said softly, "You're always the strong one. Let someone else carry it for a while." From that night on, their friendship became a sanctuary. They shared dinners until sunrise, whispered secrets between takes, and held space for each other's fears. "Diane made me feel safe being human," Goldie once said. At Diane's memorial, Goldie stood clutching a single white rose. Through tears, she whispered, "She was the sister I never had." The silence she leaves behind is deafening. In her final years after wildfires damaged her home, Diane retreated to Palm Springs, surrounded by wind, light, and silence. Each morning, she walked barefoot with her camera, capturing small miracles, palm shadows, beams of light, birds in flight. Even as her health faded, her creativity never did. Her unprinted photographs are now her final diary, her quiet goodbye. When the news broke on October 11, 2025, the world paused. Tributes flooded in. From Jane Fonda, Leonardo DiCaprio, Reese Witherspoon, and millions of fans. Outside her Los Angeles home, people laid lilies and lined her wide-brimmed hats along the gate. A handwritten note fluttered in the breeze. "You made me brave enough to be myself." Her legacy doesn't just live in awards. It lives in every woman who dares to age unapologetically, to laugh loudly, love imperfectly, and turn fear into art. Diane Keaton wasn't just a Hollywood star. She was a revolution wrapped in kindness and courage. She didn't conquer Hollywood by blending in. She conquered it by daring to be herself. She turned aging into poetry, silence into music, and heartbreak into grace. She once said, "Art is forgiving the world for breaking your heart." And that's exactly what she did for nearly 8 decades. As the lights of Hollywood dim in her honor, her glow remains soft, warm, eternal. Somewhere perhaps her laughter still floats through the wind in Palm Springs. Fierce, fragile, unforgettable rest. Diane, you taught us that true beauty is sincerity, that vulnerability is strength, and that some lights never go out. They simply learn to shine differently. If Diane Keaton touched your life, leave a heart, a memory, or simply her name below. So her